Picture this. You're in a conference room with your organization's brightest minds. Marketing, operations, finance, IT, everyone is there. The data's on the table, the goals are clear. And yet, 3 months later, you're wondering why the initiative failed. Here's what no one tells you. It wasn't a lack of intelligence that derailed your project. It was unconscious bias masquerading as expertise. I'm Dr. Kara, and today we're talking about why reducing bias isn't just another HR checkbox. It's the secret to getting your brilliant, disconnected departments to actually work together. The tool that makes it possible? Strategic storytelling. Let's get real about what's happening in your organization right now. When I work with executive teams, I constantly hear the same frustration. We've hired the best people. They're experts in their fields. So why can't they collaborate? The answer lies in what I call confirmation silos, when each department's expertise becomes a bias trap. Your marketing director sees every problem through a brand lens. Your finance sees risk. Operations sees logistics. And here's the kicker. They are all right. Yet they're all wrong because they're operating from a single story. The story their function tells about the world. This is where the RPR method comes in. Receive, perceive, and respond. Most leaders skip straight to respond. Marketing says, we need to launch this campaign. Finance responds with, that's too expensive. Nobody actually received what the other person was saying. Nobody perceived the underlying need or fear that's driving their position. When we don't interrupt our biases, we turn functional expertise into functional warfare. Cross-functional teams fail not because of skill gaps, but because of cognitive bias that prevents genuine collaboration. Each department is essentially speaking a different language, filtered through years of departmental storytelling that reinforces our way is the right way. Here's what I find interesting. The most powerful tool for reducing bias isn't another training model. It's narrative reframing through storytelling. Why? Because stories bypass our defense mechanisms. When you present data that contradicts someone's bias, their brain goes into protect mode. Yet, when you tell a story that helps them see through different eyes, you can create what neuroscientists call neural coupling. Their brain literally starts to mirror your perspective. Let me show you how this works in practice. 3-story method for bias reduction. Story 1, the customer's story. Instead of saying, we need to align on this project, start with, let me tell you about Sarah, a customer who tried to use our product last week. When you lead with a customer story, you give every functional expert a shared narrative to respond to. Marketing isn't defending their campaign. Finance isn't protecting the budget. Everyone's focused on Sarah's experience. Story 2, the failure story. This is where vulnerability becomes strategic. Share a story about a time when your bias created a problem. For example, 3 years ago, I destroyed a project because I was convinced our timeline was realistic. Operations tried to tell me otherwise, but I filtered their concerns through my we need to move fast bias. 6 months later, we had to restart from scratch. When you model acknowledging your own biases, you create psychological safety for others to examine theirs. The future story. This is the vision story, but not the generic imagine our success version. Make it concrete. Picture this. It's Q4 next year, and we're in the same room. Marketing just shared that customer retention is up 40%. Finance is showing how we reduce waste by restructuring workflows. Operations is explaining how they shortened our delivery cycle. What had to happen for us to get here? This future-focused narrative forces cross-functional thinking because everyone has to see their role in a collective story, not just their departmental win. Let's apply the RPR method to a real scenario. You're leading a cross-functional meeting about a new product launch. Tensions are high. Here's how you reduce the bias through the method. Receive. Before we problem solve, I want each department to share their biggest concern about this launch, not as a position to defend, but as information for the group. What story are you telling yourself about what could go wrong? This question reframes departmental resistance as information rather than obstruction. Perceive. Now here's what I'm noticing. IT is telling a story about system stability. Marketing is telling a story about market timing. Finance is telling a story about resource allocation. These aren't competing stories. They're chapters in the same book. What's the connecting thread? You're helping the team perceive the pattern instead of staying stuck in their individual narratives. Respond. Given all three stories, what's one decision that we can make today that honors each concern while moving us forward? Notice, you're not asking for a compromise. You're asking for integration. That's the difference between managing bias and actually reducing it. Here's what this all comes back to. Know when to pivot from my framework for connected leadership. Bias reduction isn't about eliminating expertise. It's about knowing when to pivot from my functional lens to our collective story. The most effective cross-functional leaders I work with do something counterintuitive. They name the bias out loud. They say things like, I'm coming at this with an operations bias, so challenge me if I'm missing the customer experience angle. My marketing brain wants to move fast. What am I not seeing? When you model this kind of transparency, you give permission to others to examine their own filters. That's when real alignment becomes possible. Bias reduction through storytelling isn't a soft skill. It's the hardest work that you'll have to do as a leader because it requires you to connect to your own biases before you can help others see theirs. If you're ready to break down silos in your organization and lead with genuine connection rather than forced alignment, I invite you to explore more about my framework for connected leadership. The link is in the description. Here's my question for you. What's one story your department tells that might be creating bias in your organization? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, remember, connect to yourself so that you can elevate and expand for those you lead.